So, as host of All About Android, you play with a lot of Android devices, phones, tablets, and so forth.
Yes.
We thought we'd try this one out. This is the Sony Xperia. They don't get a lot of attention for their Xperia phones or tablets. Maybe they should.
Well, I mean, this is actually, I will say right off the top, a pretty awesome 10.1-inch tablet. And as you can see, it's super thin.
But you know what you can't see is how light it is.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, it's really light.
It surprised me when I picked it up.
Yeah, 16.9 ounces.
That's a pound, basically.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just slightly
And
over
they say it's as thin as a pencil.
Thinner than a pencil.
Oh, definitely. It's a lot thinner.
Oh, wait a minute. That's the wrong size
pencil.
pencil.
use a regular pencil.
Let me get an
It
actual
still is
pencil.
thinner than a normal pencil.
Look at that. Normal size
Jason's
pencil.
a big guy, and so he uses big writing implements.
Yeah, exactly. So here we go. It's very thin, light, and you know, the weight is very evenly distributed. So when you pick it up, I don't know, it just feels solid. At first I wanted to say that it was going to feel like I'm holding a sheet of glass and that it might break at any given point.
It doesn't feel fragile, but it does feel almost hollow.
Yeah,
it has really
a little
light.
bit of hollowness to it.
Not the sound, just how light it is. It seems like this should weigh more.
No, absolutely. It has this kind of squarish design, which I think it's kind of one of those things that you're either going to love it or hate it. I kind of think that it makes it look a little bland.
You know, Apple and everybody now are doing this wedge thing where it's just as thick in the middle, but it's thinner on the edges.
Yeah.
Sony, I guess, decided, why try to pretend we're thinner than we are?
Well, and one of the features of this is that it's water resistant up to 3 feet deep.
What? We'll go ahead and throw it in that drawer, our water drawer.
I was wondering if we do that at the beginning or the end, because I have not done this yet.
No, let's not.
Let's save it for the end.
I don't trust that water resistant stuff.
I trust it enough to try it at the end of the review, but let me show it off first. But it's water resistant, so as a result, you end up with...
You could take it in the tub.
Yes, or you could take it to the beach and get splashed.
Yeah.
It has these little flippy things, right, to get to the connectors.
Cover the holes.
And that covers the holes. Okay. And that's actually one of the kind of things that I don't necessarily love, but it's kind of essential if you want that water resistance. It's what actually keeps the water out of the ports that you have throughout. It's just kind of annoying to have to unplug it every time you want to plug it in.
If you thought it's never going to go underwater, I suppose you could tear that off and not have to worry about it.
Yeah, exactly.
So now it isn't the latest, greatest Android. It's 4.1?
Yeah, it's 4.1.2 Jelly Bean.
It's still Jelly Bean, but boy, I'd like to see 4.2.
Yeah, and
ooh, that's a pretty screen.
It has a very nice, vivid, sharp screen. You know, they tie these into the whole Bravia kind of engine that Sony is very tied into. So
Sony makes these IGZO displays. Is it an IGZO display? I don't think so.
No, I don't believe that it is. Okay. They tout OptiContrast, which is just a fancy word for having bright contrast for outside, and indeed, it's very bright.
It looks like an OLED screen, but it's not, right? It's an LCD, or is it OLED?
Yeah,
I'll look it up. I'll look it up. You keep
reality display. They've got lots of taglines for it.
You know what? Sony calls their OLEDs reality. So that is an OLED display.
There we go.
It looks like one.
1.5 gigahertz quad-core Snapdragon S4 processor with 2 gigs of RAM. I found it to be perfectly sufficient from a power perspective. For things like gaming, I actually played Riptide GP2, which just came out on Android not too long ago, and it was super fluid and a lot of fun to play. Although I will say with the design, the speakers are down here at the bottom corners. And how are you likely to hold a tablet when you're gaming?
Right.
Like this. In some tablets, when you do this, it actually enhances the sound because your cupped hand projects the sound back to you. But on this, it's literally where your palm rests over. And they're so small that you hardly hear the speakers as a result. So for gaming, that's kind of a disappointment. Even though it plays, you know, when you're playing games on this, it's super fluid and performs really well. Browsing, of course, the OS level controls, all very solid and pretty happy with it. The software, there's a lot of specific software features in here. First of all, the skin is by no means a stock skin. It's definitely kind of a themed skin, and they have all these different choices for different themes that you can put over the top of it. So you either love it or you hate it. It didn't bother me that much, but they have other things built into there, things like down here at the bottom, you have this list of apps that you can pop over the top of anything that you have, like a Note app or playing video, stuff like that.
Now, the good news is I'm seeing that people have rooted it, and CyanogenMod is available for it. So if you decided you wanted a more stock Android experience, with
or you could install just a replacement launcher.
I use Nova Launcher routinely, and then it looks just like it looks the same everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. It has an IR blaster. So if that's your thing, that's a really nice feature.
So you could use it as a remote control for
Exactly.
your TV.
And they have these integrated NFC. Now, I don't have Sony TV at home, so I couldn't test this myself. But they have all these integrated kind of NFC capabilities so that these devices can talk to each other, Sony devices. So if you're really bought into the Sony world, there's a lot of capability as far as like flinging your media up to the TV, having it mirror, all that kind of stuff. If you're a Sony fan, this tablet might be a great way.
But you have to have a Sony TV? It won't work with other TVs?
Yeah, they work with, Bravia TVs. They're all about getting you into the Sony world, I guess. Camera, I almost, when talking about tablets, don't even, care too much about the camera, because how many pictures are people taking with tablets, and the quality is kind of always the same. Really great in high light situations, really poor in low light situations. I was taking pictures in here, back in the editor's room, outside, and the outside ones looked pretty decent. Everything else looked very washed out and kind of grainy. So if a camera on your tablet is important to you, probably isn't the best tablet, but I don't know that's why you would pay $500
As long as it's got
for
a
a tablet.
decent camera.
Yeah,
It
it's
doesn't
got
have
a
to be
serviceable
great.
camera.
I really love how the screen looks, although you might say that those are unnaturally colorful.
It's overly vivid and overly saturated, for sure.
But that's what I like.
Yeah, there you go.
1920 by 1200, pretty high resolution.
Yep, high resolution. What am I missing? Micro SD card, the 8.1 megapixel rear-facing camera, by the way. LTE option is available for those that want that. The battery is 6,000 milliamp hours.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty
So
sufficient.
you get 10 hours typically all day, basically.
Yeah, it's so hard to tell sometimes because you have these for such a short period of time. But I was syncing a lot of stuff, and I never had to worry really about the battery. And, that's about all.
So let's get the pros and cons.
So the pros: water-resistant design. So if that's important to you, this is one of the few players. Incredibly thin and light. Fits just right inside a pocket in your backpack, and you won't even know that it's there. Bright and sharp display. The IR Blaster integration to Sony, other Sony things. All of that is a pro. Cons: the covers just kind of get annoying. Even just for charging it nightly, having to get that cover off, and it's really hard to kind of get in there and get it off, can be a little downer. The square corners, the square kind of design, can kind of be uncomfortable when you're gaming in particular, and the love it or hate it skin. But we can't do a review of this and not show off its water resistant capabilities.
You're not going to put it in water.
Oh, hey, that's what they say you can do. Up to 3 feet. I'm only doing what Sony
it's a
said
bathtub tablet
that I can do.
God, that hurts whenever anybody does that.
I
There you
know.
go, and it's still working.
Yeah, it's still on.
Can you swipe the screen?
I don't think that you can. No.
Okay.
It's resistant, right? It's not meant to
It's taking a
operate
deep breath right now.
underwater.
That was cold water.
But
Hey, it works. Look at
there
that.
we go. And
That's a selling point. I think that is a selling point.
absolutely. It's going to be a little thrown off, I think, because the water on the screen, is throwing it off. If I was to dry it off completely, I'm sure it would be right back to normal. But, it's not flickering and yelling at me, so I guess that's a good sign.
Sony Xperia Z tablet, 10 inches, $500 starting price, just like the iPad.
Yep, 600 if you want 32
LTE
gigs
or
of
32
storage.
gigs. Okay. Very good. Thank you, Jason Howell.
Absolutely.